Are we back? Hanover, Pennsylvania. Oh my goodness. We are having some serious trouble here. Okay. Maybe we're on. A little better now. How's that? Okay. Are you hearing me?
I'm not seeing anything. I have no video.
Are there? Okay. Go look on the actual YouTube page and see if you can find it. So it's kind of trying to work here. Let me see it, Donnie.
I have to watch this lady minutes coming out of the and I just
Okay.
cut some little tassels into it to make it look more
Let me
like
see.
wrap it around our snowman and then a good spot for it. And we're just gonna put a I heard you out there talking.
I think maybe Nathan being on it. Nate!
Nate? You need him off?
Yeah. Oh, it's like the Wi-Fi died or something.
Do you know which one you're on?
FAI, the one I'm usually.
Yes, Alex?
Yeah.
Do you want to try Ruby? She's like, Mom, there's a huge spider in the bathroom. Oh, it's sorry. He's like this big. She's like, where's it? I'm like, Ruby, that's not a spider. I've seen bigger. There sometimes can be some.
There's probably just a wolf spider.
They're mostly wolf spiders.
Yeah.
They look
and they're
alarming,
harmless.
but
Yeah.
they're.
So it's not even coming on. Okay, it tells me I'm live over here. And let's see if it actually is live. Over here. And now it says we're live. And I gotta watch an ad. 3, 2, 1. Skip ad. Oh, look at that.
There you are, babe.
I think I'm live. How's that? Holy smokes.
What's been going on with CBN?
That was a whole lot more difficult than it should have been. Hi, folks.
All right, you want me to take this now?
How are you? Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
All right, now I got to put everything back together. We've been having all kinds of technical issues with the CBN lives that we've been doing over the last several days, and I'm not sure why. Because I haven't had these troubles on my own lives when I do it over on my channel, on the Hot Zone. But for some reason, we have had just a devil of a time trying to get these things going. Let me get this microphone working. All right, here we go. Now, can you hear me? Let's go out here and So it's supposed to be. Okay. We got people from all over. 400 people online. We haven't even started yet. All right. Good evening, folks. Thank you so much for joining us and for your patience, because things have not gone to plan tonight. But we finally got it going, and I'm glad, because we got plenty to talk about. Very interesting stuff. So first of all, I want to know where everybody's from. I see some people saying like Washington State there and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, all right. Whereabouts in Wisconsin? That'd be, my wife is from Wisconsin. She and I met up there. Canada, all over the place. Around the world. Look at that. Colorado, Philadelphia, Norway, Florida. Wow. That's so fun. It's so totally cool. I got to close this door. Hang on a second. Okay, so we've had an interesting day. I am up in the northern part of Israel, up near the Lebanese border. You might hear some booms off in the distance as they are shooting artillery over at the Lebanon side. And I've even heard some small arms fire, which just means that they're training near here. There's no like fighting going on here where I am, at least not within small arms fire range. I'm probably about 10 miles from the border with Lebanon right now, where I'm staying here at a friend's house. And in the early afternoon today, we went up to Haifa and then cut over to kind of the center of the country, up in the very north, we went to a Maronite Christian village. Now, if you're like me, you probably didn't know much about the Maronite Christians, either those that are here in Israel or those that are anywhere else. What's a Maronite Christian, you say? Well, I did a little research and talked to these guys some today, got to know some of them. Very interesting people group. The Maronites are one of the only groups left who actually speak Aramaic. That's the language that Jesus himself spoke. And they worship in Aramaic, but they normally do their business in Arabic, because they live mixed in with Arabic people. The Maronites exist kind of northern Israel to Lebanon, into Lebanon, and a little bit into Syria. There are some, I guess, in Iraq, perhaps, but the people who speak Aramaic in Iraq are known as Syriac Christians. And I'm not sure what the difference is between Maronite and Syriac, but they're very close. The Maronites are like Eastern Catholic. Okay, so like almost like an Orthodox Catholic, something like that. But there are a very small minority of those people here in Israel. And total in Israel, less than 2% of the country are Christian. And Maronites, about 185,000 people is all that exist here. Most of them live up here in the north in these villages. There's some that live out in the West Bank. But they typically live in pretty close proximity to Arabs, even though they're not Arab. They're Aramaic. And to them, I mean, that's more than a language. That's more like a people group. And so they don't consider themselves Arabs, even though they speak Arabic to get around. Now, up here in the northern part of Galilee, where we are, it seems like every village you come to is a different religious sect. So there's a Druze village over here, there's an Arab village over there, there's a Christian village over here, there's another Arab village, there's a, and one thing I noticed today, because I've been driving around the West Bank a lot, and when you're driving around the West Bank, what you notice is there's lots and lots of fences with barbed wire and everything that separate the Israeli part from the Arab part. And as I was driving around in the north today, driving by some Arab villages, I noticed that those Arab villages don't have any barbed wire separating them from the rest of Israel. As a matter of fact, they're much cleaner, they're much better put together. And I was like, I wonder what the difference is. I saw a flag flying today that was like, I think, white, blue, and yellow with a green triangle. And so it's kind of has the look of a Palestinian flag, except the colors are different. And I was like, what is that? So it took me a little while to figure that out, and it actually was a Druze village. So the Druze are a Arab people group who are Muslims, but they have their own kind of sect of Muslims. So different enough that they don't really get along with the Sunni and the Shia. At least they don't, religiously, they don't associate with those people. Be kind of like maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Presbyterians or something, you know, that they both call themselves Christian, but they have kind of different interpretations of what that means. So the Druze, though, are very, very secretive about their religious faith and about what they actually believe. So it's kind of hard to even learn what they believe because they don't like to talk about it. We know they're Muslims, but whatever they are, they're not dangerous like the Palestinian Muslims are, at least here in Israel. At least not to the extent that the Palestinian Muslims are, in so much that when you drive around up here, if you go by a Druze village, there's not going to be fencing that separates the village from the rest of Israel like there would be in the West Bank. So fascinating, very interesting stuff up here. Talking to the Maronite folks, they say that they were actually like ethnically cleansed from much of southern Lebanon by Hezbollah. They were pushed out, like and this is a generation ago or a little more even. And so these guys were, and are actually, with the remaining ones that are still up there, are tremendously persecuted by Hezbollah. And it's very, very difficult for them to live up there. And the Israeli Maronite Christians look across that border. Today where we were, we could stand right there in their village and we could see into Lebanon. And we could listen to the artillery shells being fired out of Israel and going into Lebanon to hit Hezbollah positions. And they were absolutely demolishing some Hezbollah positions. I've got video of some of the explosions. I didn't shoot it, but I got it today, sent to me. Some of the explosions of the places that they struck that belonged to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they practically looked like nuclear explosions. I mean, there were massive explosions going off. So apparently the Israelis hit something really important up there today in Lebanon. So we were standing on the mountaintop in the Maronite Christian village, listening to the artillery from the Israeli side getting fired into Lebanon. And my wife, the first round that went off, you know, it was close enough that it was surprising. It wasn't far away. It was what CNN would have called very loud explosions. And I turned around and looked, and my wife had jumped so high, she was about 6 inches off the ground, and was diving for Rubina, my daughter-in-law, to take her down and shield her with her body, till we all said, no, it's okay, it's outgoing. Don't worry about it. I've mentioned this before, but outgoing fire has a very specific sound that's much different than incoming fire. And so outgoing, like if you learn to tell the difference, you hear that kapoof, and it's like a really sharp, almost like a crack that goes off. It's a much sharper sound than an incoming explosion, which is more like a ka-womp. It's almost like a double explosion. And so when you hear it and you learn to tell the difference, you don't have to be worried when you hear that it's outgoing. So we stood there on this mountaintop and did an interview with this Maronite Christian. He's a major in the IDF. He has his name is Shadi Khalul. He's got a NGO that he started to try to encourage other Maronite Christians and support them in this difficult time. A lot of them have like lost their businesses, at least lost a lot of their income, even though, so they've evacuated up to 5 kilometers from the border, the northern border. So all the villages within 5 kilometers of the northern border, the people there have been evacuated, and there's a government program that will pay for them to stay in a hotel or give them a stipend if they go stay at a family member's house or something like that. And the problem for these Maronite Christians is their village is like 6 kilometers away from the border. And so they don't qualify for this stipend, but many of them are really worried because of the sheer volume of rockets that are coming in every day. And so they are leaving voluntarily and going elsewhere in Israel to live for the time being. But they don't qualify for that stipend, so it's much more difficult economically on them. And so aside from the 80-something thousand that have qualified under this program and are getting the stipend, getting their hotels paid for, you have, could be another 20 or 30,000 people that have left voluntarily who are not under that program. And that's something I didn't know before. So this guy, you know, Shadi Khalul has a very interesting NGO that's helping people not only survive during this time, but trying to help keep their kids connected to the Maronite community, helping them learn Aramaic, because a lot of them, since they don't speak it in everyday life, they're not learning Aramaic like they should or like they want them to. So they're trying to keep that language alive, keep their culture alive, and they're doing, you know, camps and things like that. Very interesting day talking with him. And you know, I have to say this. I've been interviewing a lot of people, and there's just something about when you interview somebody that is a Christian, and I can just feel it. I can just feel the spirit in them when I talk to them. It's like talking to my family. And I've interviewed a lot of other people that are not Christians, and they're very nice, very polite, very well-spoken, nothing bad to say about them whatsoever. But I don't have that same feeling. I just don't have that feeling like this is my brother. And I don't have the urge to hug them, you know, after we get done with the interview, like I do with Shadi Khalul, you know, like I just felt like this is my kind of person, and he's my brother. It was pretty awesome. We then went back to one of his people's houses, and we had some tea and some pastries. And the other thing was that we showed up there, and you look around, you're like, wow, as the sun starts to go down, all the lights start popping on. And this Maronite Christian village is lit up for Christmas. And that's something that's pretty cool, because other than the YMCA, which is right around the corner from our apartment in Jerusalem, other than that place, you don't see a lot of Christmas decorations around Jerusalem. And it was really nice. I had not really been feeling like it was Christmas yet. I hadn't really gotten into the spirit, because we're in the Holy Land, and it's war, and I'm working hard and busy, and so it just didn't feel like Christmas spirit. But tonight, driving through that village and seeing all the Christmas lights on, people's Christmas trees up, and laurels and wreaths on the doors and things like that, like all of a sudden I just started like feeling Christmas, started feeling it. And it makes me homesick, makes me want to go home to our farm in West Virginia and get all my family together and my grandkids, and just have a good time being together. And so I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to be starting our journey home on Tuesday morning-ish of this week. going out through Jordan. I will be reporting from Jordan on Tuesday, and then we'll get on the plane and fly back. Probably will not be able to do a live report on Wednesday. But then I'll start up again once we get back to West Virginia, and we'll keep on rolling with our updates from West Virginia over Christmas. People seem to want us to keep doing them, so we'll keep doing them, and we really appreciate that. So, what are you all doing for Christmas? It's a very interesting time to be here during the Christmas season and realize that it's not like I thought it would be. Now in Nazareth, in Bethlehem this year, Bethlehem is an A zone. Bethlehem is a West Bank A zone, so they are not celebrating Christmas in Bethlehem this year for the first time in living memory, I think. And that's pretty unfortunate as well. The Christians who live in those West Bank communities in Nazareth are really hurting, and we need to pray for them. Apparently, since all of this has started, these are Palestinians, and they're Christians who live in the West Bank, okay? Some of those, again, very small number of Christians, about 1.6% of Israelis who are Christian. But again, they live in and among the Arab population because they're Arabs, but they're Christian. And typically they just kind of get along as best they can. I'm sure it's not easy for them living among a very angry community of Muslims, but they get along pretty well because they're Arabs too. But since the war started, apparently things have gotten a lot harder for them. And they've really started to be persecuted by the Palestinian Authority, by these thugs in their neighborhoods, Hamas operatives in the West Bank, and even to the point where they're basically trying to drive them out. I'm told that, and talking to some of these Maronites, they said that they've talked to their brothers down in the West Bank, and they've said it's really, really bad for them. They are, like he told a story, and I'm going to post this interview, by the way, on my webpage over at chuckholton.com. You can go over there and you can find all my reporting from different outlets. You can find my books, you can find my movies, documentaries, and all that sort of thing over at chuckholton.com. But I'll post the things that I'm mentioning here, like the video of the giant arms depot blowing up in Lebanon today, and what I'm telling you right now, this interview that I did with a Maronite Christian guy over there. And I'll probably put the interview with the Maronite guy on my Hot Zone channel, or the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton here on YouTube. So you can go and please subscribe over there too. So what he was telling me was that he talked to his, Christian brothers in Nazareth, and they were saying that they are having to leave. They're going to have to move out of Nazareth because these Muslim guys came and took a illegal AK-47, a weapon, and buried it in their garden in their front yard, and then basically swatted them. If you know what swatting is, it's where you call the cops on somebody and say, this guy's doing drugs at his house or whatever, and then the cops come and kick in the door and find that there was nothing there. It was just a prank call. So they're basically swatting these Christians in Nazareth by putting some drugs or some weapons or something like that on their property and then calling the police, which is Palestinian Authority police. So these are Muslim guys who show up at their door and say, oh, you've got weapons, illegal weapons. And then the gang or the thugs that did it come back to them after they get in trouble and say, oh, now you're getting the police called on us. If you don't want to die, you're going to have to, sell your property and move out. Thank you, dear. So these Christians in Nazareth are selling their homes and packing up and leaving and going somewhere else. So the Christian persecution that we're hearing about in Israel is by the Arabs in the Palestinian Authority, under the Palestinian Authority, whether they're affiliated with the PA or they're just, living there and the PA is looking the other way, doesn't really matter for the Christians. The Christians are being persecuted by the Arab Muslims in the West Bank. And that's really unfortunate for them because they've lived there for generations. They care for many of the holy sites that like the church in Bethlehem and some of the other sites. In Nablus, there's a Greek Orthodox church that's built on top of the well where Jesus met the Samaritan woman. And it's right in the middle of this Arab enclave, and the people that care for it may not be able to stay there because of the increasing tensions between them and the rest of Israel. It kind of reminds me of what we're seeing in the United States in some ways, that there are starting to become places in the United States where certain ethnicities or basically where white people cannot safely live or safely go. I remember not too long ago going to Atlanta, and I went downtown and went down to when I was in the Army, we used to go to Atlanta, and there was a mall there called Underground Atlanta, and we used to go up there and party and have a good time at the mall. But I took my daughter there. And we went down into that mall and looked around, and it was like the music stopped, everybody stopped, they all looked at us, and I thought, I feel a little uncomfortable here. But we stayed for a while, and then we kind of left, and like I say, we just got a lot of hairy eyeballs pointed at us, and that's unfortunate. There shouldn't be any place in America where any American feels uncomfortable. And I hope that doesn't continue to get worse, where there are places where people just can't go in America. Okay, does Hamas okay, well, started to lose it there. There's a question. I'm going to have to get my glasses out here. Question, does Hamas hate the Jews, hate the Jew called Jesus? Well, what do you think? Of course they do, and they hate anybody who follows the Jew called Jesus. Southern part of Norway, wow. Do they have a southern accent in southern Norway? How do we watch you on Newsmax? We'll talk about that over on my channel, so you can go over to the Hot Zone and ask that question over there. I'm not going to do that on CBN's dime. And if you'd like to support CBN, I'd highly suggest that you do so. That's how we stay out here in the field, and we keep bringing this kind of reporting to you. Go over to CBN.com and support CBN over there. We could use it, and we'll make good use of it for sure. Nathan looks like my twin. Yeah, I did a live over on my channel today, driving up here to Kiryat Shimona, and had my son and daughter-in-law and my wife in the car. And everybody says Nathan's my mini-me, although he's about a foot taller than I am now, so he's not too mini. Do you know there are only 2% are Christians in? Oh, didn't know there are only 2% who are Christians in Israel. Yeah, right. You would think it'd be a lot more than 2%. I would too.
I was going to give you glasses.
No, I got something. Thank you. I got to keep an eye on the time because I do have more work to do today.
To address why Christians are threatened.
Why are the Christians being threatened? Okay, so this must be people who just came on. So the reason that Christians are being threatened in Israel is because they live in West Bank areas. So these are Arab, Palestinian Christians, and Maronite Christians who live in various Arab Muslim parts of the country. They live there in the Arab areas because they're Arab, but they're not Muslims. And they have, because they're Arab, they speak Arabic and they know the culture and everything like that. They've gotten along there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I'm sure it's a little bit difficult for them, and I'm sure they get, they've always had to go along to get along somewhat, but now they're starting to see actual attacks. They're starting to be targeted by Hamas and by the Palestinian Authority and by other Muslims in their area where they live in the West Bank, and to the point where they're literally having to sell their homes at cut rates to Arabs, to Arab Muslims, and then move out of the West Bank and go somewhere else. The Maronite Christians that I talked to today showed me, they brought a set of binoculars, and we looked through the binoculars, and they showed me off on a far mountaintop a Maronite Christian church that was their church when, you know, like when this guy, he's about my age, so probably 50 years ago, was a church where they lived and went to church over there. And they got pushed out of that area by the, you know, one of the wars with Hezbollah. And the Israelis told them, well, just, you know, move out of there for a time while we, you know, clean everything up and make it safe, and then you can move back in. But they were never allowed to move back in. And so they've been living on another mountaintop within sight of the first one ever since then. And they would really like to move back to their original village. So they're in negotiations with the Israeli government to do that. I think since like 2013, but they have not yet gotten permission to go over there and establish a new village on that new mountaintop. I think it's important to also remind you that when we talk about these villages that are being built, whether it's a Maronite Christian village, whether it's a Druze village, whether it's a you know, Jewish village, no place in Israel is it illegal to build a house. You have to go through the process, of course. You've got to get a building permit. You've got to get permission to build there, especially if it's government land that you're taking over. And in the West Bank, that gets pretty complicated. But the Jews and other Israelis who are moving into the West Bank and establishing settlements or communities there are not illegal in any way, shape, or form under Israeli law. They are doing it according by the book. But the world at large, the United Nations, calls them illegally occupied West Bank. And they say that those villages that are being established by Israelis in there are illegal. But again, who cares what the UN thinks? The UN's not making the rules. Now, I asked, speaking of the UN, I asked this Maronite guy that I was with today about the UN peacekeeping force that's in southern Lebanon. Did you know there are thousands of UN peacekeepers from places like Ireland and Mali and stuff like that who are in southern Lebanon, south of the river, that Lilith River or whatever it is, that are supposed to be enforcing the UN resolutions or the agreements that were made after the end of the last war between Hezbollah and Israel, in which Hezbollah agreed not to send troops south of that river. And then they never abided by it. The Hezbollah fighters have been south of that river for a long time, building up forces, building permanent fighting positions, building towers right along the border, et cetera, et cetera. And the UN peacekeepers, in their thousands that are there, again, partially supported by US tax dollars, have done nothing to stop it. They just watch. About the only thing that's profitable that those UN guys do is they demine places. They find mines and that are unexploded or whatever, and they take them out of commission. So they're decommissioning mines. But They are not living up to their mandate, which is to enforce the agreement between Hezbollah and Israel, in which Hezbollah agreed not to be south of that river. And they're still doing it. So, what? I can't hear you, son. 7:45. Thank you. So that's, you know, that these UN is called UNFIL, UNFIL. They are worse than worthless. Worse because they're worthless, but they're still costing us lots of money. In the millions and probably hundreds of millions of dollars a year that they're costing to be there, and they're literally doing nothing. Now, there was another agreement, UN resolution, that mandated that Hezbollah disarm. And they didn't abide by that one either. I was educated as to that today, and that's in the interview that I did with this guy that you can watch over on my YouTube channel. Very fascinating stuff. There are so many arcane facets to the whole issue of Israel. Like, there's so many things. You know, Israel at conflict with Hamas is one tiny little part of all the things that Israel has to deal with. And there are so many different little subcultures in Israel, like the Druze, those Muslim Druze that are up here. Like, which Druze, they don't consider themselves Arab. They consider Druze